Okay, y'all. Back with another one. It's Bon Shemayim here, and today's video is gonna be on. Actually, this was a surprise. Hate on Christ is not anti-Semitic. I was gonna do this, but I was gonna have to clip it, and then I got on here and I found out Gathering to Christ had already clipped it and turned it into a 6-minute clip. So I advise y'all to watch the whole thing. He did a interview. This is a brother Rakai and Rabbi Harry, and it was a good interview, man. It was a really good interview. I believe Rabbi was really trying to get Brother Rakai to bring some of that energy and spirit up out of him so he could say, he's being angry or whatever, to bring some of that passion out of him. But Brother Rakai did really well. He did really well. And he caught him in this part right here where he asked him about Christ. He asked him if Christ was if hating on Christ is anti-Semitic. Anyways, we gonna get to it. So I have seen the whole video, which is like I think an hour and a half, and I would advise y'all to go check them out. This is at A Gathering 144. Check them out, man. It was a really good interview with Rabbi Harry. So we're gonna get into it and have our reaction. Let's go.
I find something interesting before we go is that Christ, I would say, even through infamy on those who believe Judaism, even through infamy, we must agree that Christ is the most famous Jew that have ever graced the earth. I'm talking about from a wide perspective and view from all people, not just Jewish people. That would be the one Jew that's the most famous Jew that have ever graced the earth. Right? I'm just talking about notoriety. Would you say that?
Well, according to Kabbalah,
I'm not talking about Kabbalah. I'm talking about just even through regular people in the earth who didn't know anything about Kabbalah or nothing. If they think of Jew, and say who's the most famous Jew that have ever graced the planet, and ask any random person, they'll say Jesus. Wouldn't you agree to that?
I would have guessed Moses, but maybe you're making a good point. But according to
Come on now. Come on now. He said I would have guessed Moses. He know that's not true. He know that look when it was brought up, you could tell he didn't like it. You could tell that by that grin on his face. That grin was a grin of like disdain. If you ever saw somebody like anybody like who been in like the neighborhood around neighborhood type of people, hood type of people as they call them, they know somebody that like you would say something offensive, or they've seen somebody where something offensive is said, and before they like attack the person who said the offensive thing or disrespected them in whatever way they feel like they were disrespected, you will see them do that. You will see them smile and be like, okay, I got you. So that kind of smile let me know off the rip, like he didn't like that question. And then he answered it with, I would say Moses. And we know Christ is the most known Jew ever in existence. I mean, the timeline is AD for after Christ's death and BC for before Christ. Our whole timeline is kind of based off of him. So let's keep going. I'm going to go back a little bit and then we're going to keep going. Let's get it.
Nothing. If they think of Jew, and say who's the most famous Jew that have ever graced the planet, and ask any random person, they'll say Jesus. Wouldn't you agree to that?
I would have guessed Moses, but maybe you're making a good point. But according to the Kabbalah, what I was saying before is Christianity, from our perspective, played a role in taking the light of the redemption into this dark side and debriefing the whole world on the house of David that will eventually have a redeemer come forth. So
I'm saying, but I'm not talking about your view. I'm talking about just a general view. If you was to ask somebody on the corner, regardless of religion, ethnicity or whatever and say, well, who's the most famous Jew you think have graced the planet? Even if they don't believe in anything, they would say Jesus.
Hold on, y'all. I just thought about something. Yeah, man, I just thought about this. Let's go to Steam Labs. I'm gonna move my camera because I think my camera is probably blocking Brother Harry. So I'm gonna drop it down here so y'all can see Brother Harry when he's speaking. Okay. Because I definitely want y'all to catch Brother Harry when he's speaking too. All right, let's go back.
Briefing the whole world on the house of David that will eventually have a redeemer come forth. So
I'm saying, but I'm not talking about your view. I'm talking about just a general view. If you was to ask somebody on the corner, regardless of religion, ethnicity, or whatever, and say, well, who's the most famous Jew you think have graced the planet? Even if they don't believe in anything, they would say Jesus.
Yeah, well,
as a consensus, don't you believe that's true?
Let's say that was the case, and I agree with you. I'm not the census master, but if that was what is reality, I would just add to that from our perspective, there's a very deep purpose of why that would be the case.
Okay, well, even though there's a purpose, it's so. So let me ask you this. It seems like that famous Jew, which is the most famous, a matter of fact, it's through him, as an extension of me growing up as Christians, is why I revered and respected the Jews that I didn't know anything about religiously. By proxy, I respected Jews, white Jews,
Man.
because of Christ. That's my personal observation. Now, it seems like that's the
We gonna have to, man. This is true. This is true. This is why when these people come out and say that, first off, they say black Hebrew Israelites. There's no such thing. You got Hebrews and Israelites. We don't consider ourselves black. I think I've said that in the video and multiple videos. So I'm gonna keep repeating it. We don't consider ourselves black any longer. We might use black sometime in conversation just because that's how the world identifies us, but we don't identify with that color. Like a guy said in my chat, my shirt is black. I'm brown. Burnished bronze, as if I burned in the furnace. But what he said, what he hit on was so true. When I was younger, I was born an apostolic Christian in the church. Praise the Most High for my auntie Cynthia, and rest in peace for her because she had me in the church a lot, and I love church. I love church. It was my favorite thing. Like one of my favorite things. I got baptized when I was really young. I don't remember how old, but I don't remember what happened, to be honest. I got baptized and then they did the little thing where they touch your head with the grease, and I just kind of blacked out. And when I woke up, I had like woke up and dried tears and stuff that came down my eyes. I just remember that, and that, like, me not knowing what was going on and people saying I was speaking in tongues and all of that, and me not remembering it, I clenched on to that for a long time. I thought, like, man, that must have been God. Even though, like, I didn't get enlightened, there was nothing I learned. I just felt like, man, this is not a physical thing, so this has to be spiritual, of God. And I was deceived for years. I was deceived. But back to the point at hand, when I would walk past a Jewish person when I was younger, I would just like go up to them and like say hi, and I just hope, like, I would be like, God, please please give them something, to tell me. Like, give them a word to tell me, because I read the Bible. I believed in the Bible. I respected them because of Christ in the Bible. Like, it says, for what purpose is there for what is the advantage of a Jew? For each and every way. For the Jews are the oracles of God, right? So if some may not believe, does it make the faith of God void? God forbid, right? So, like, I really believe these are the people of God. And every time I saw them, I hoped to receive something inspirational coming from God, right? And it just never happened. But that never made me lose faith. So when people say that this is a racist movement, that is a lie. That is false. Because before I knew Christ was a black man, I worshiped Christ as a white man and gave him all my heart. It's just the truth is out now. So you can't come at us like this is a ploy and we're doing this because we're trying to steal somebody's identity. Because I've been seeing that a lot in the chats. Because, like, if it wasn't for Christ being who Christ is, our Savior, I would never have looked at them to be a particular or a special people. And I would never have put the energy and treated them like that and believed that. I really did believe that. So it's important. This was years ago when I was young, but nonetheless, like all the way up until I'm like a teenager, I'm like 18, 19, I see a Jewish person, I'm shaking like, man, they about to give me a revelation or something. And that's what I always thought because I believed in them. So for people to say that this movement is racist, absolutely not. Because there would have been no me believing in God if I didn't start believing in Him as Christ being, or not, it was God and His Son, Yeshaya, or we'll say Christ so I don't offend other people who call Him a different name. If it wasn't for Christ, me thinking Christ was a white guy, I would have never referenced him, and I would not have shook if I did not fully believe. I was shaking because I was nervous, because I really believe these were the people. I've always believed in the word of God, so I thought that they were the people, and that's why I was shaking. So when he says that, that touched base with me, because I was the same way. I would have no support for them or knowledge of them or even really care of them if they weren't linked and attached to Christ. So let's keep going.
I revered and respected the Jews that I didn't know anything about religiously. By proxy, I respected Jews, white Jews, because of Christ. That's my personal observation.
Testimony.
Now, it seems like that's the only Jew that can be offended online without anyone labeling people anti-Semite. Why do you think that's so?
The Jews don't really take ownership for him, because so you can say whatever you want about him.
Y'all caught that. The Jews don't take ownership for him. So you could say whatever you want to about him. I'm going to let him keep going and try to explain himself, but everybody should take note of this because this is absurd. Like, so y'all will defend a banker. Y'all will defend a music industry exec that pushes destruction in the so-called black community or the Hebrew community in the ghettos, which we all know ghettos is where Hebrews stayed, so we stay in the ghettos as well. But in the ghettos, they push this negative narrative of murdering each other, drugs, whoring out of our women, witchcraft, idolatry. It's all pushed towards our neighborhood. But you'll defend them about anything that you believe that if we go at them, it's anti-Semitic. You'll defend these people. But the person who died for the salvation of our people, and to be honest, he because there's two different things, right? The people, we're the people of the promise, right? So we will receive the promise. So and all other people end up receiving salvation under Christ. Christ is not going to discount other nations, meaning nobody's going to make it into Christ's kingdom, but his people. That's not reality. So all of these people are tied and bound to him. The whole world recognizes who you are because majority of the world believe in Christ. Majority of the world is Christians. And they all believe in Christ. And that's why they reverence you for who you are. But you'll defend evil people doing evil things against another people. But you won't defend Christ, who didn't do anything to anybody. Christ didn't hurt not one person. Yet he will on his coming. A guy asked, why you always want to go to war? We ain't went to war. We don't plan to go to war. How would we win a war? Y'all got airplanes and bombs and nukes. We not fighting in this war. Judgment's coming. Y'all gonna get together with the beast and try to fight Christ. We're the people waiting for salvation from the war. The war is gonna bring our freedom. Okay, so this is really deep. Let's go back into it.
Jews don't really take ownership for him, because so you can say whatever you want about him. It's not something we have a personal issue with. We believe we don't declare a human Messiah until he does three things.
Hold up. I'm gonna let you get your point. Christians, I need y'all to hear this. Christians, I need you all to hear this. So they don't care what people say negative about Christ. Okay, he's disowned. You said that. Listen, I don't care what people say about him. Isn't that what you just said?
Well, no, we don't say mean things about people, but we're not triggered if someone.
Wait. He is triggered. He is triggered. Matter of fact, I'm glad I paused it at this moment because it looked like he's kind of rolling his eyes. He could be blinking. I could be wrong, but he is triggered, and it's funny because he says we don't say hateful things about anyone, but in your books it says Christ was a bastard born of Mary. It says Christ is in hell being punished, right? These are your books that say this. So you can't say, well, we don't speak bad upon nobody when you wrote it in the book that y'all believe. Let's go back, man. Let's get it. Let's get some more on this.
What people say about him. Isn't that what you just said?
Well, no, we don't say mean things about people, but we're not triggered if someone wants to talk about him. It does nothing.
What I'm saying is, if I say something negative about Jews as a group, I'm labeled anti-Semite. But the most famous Jew that have ever graced the planet, anyone can say something negative about him, even Jewish people, and not be labeled. You don't see anything wrong with that?
Absolutely not. There's every year for the last 2,000 years, there's been Jews whose books have been burned and kicked out of the community for not passing on what everyone heard from their father. So if someone deviated from what everyone heard from their father, it was just expelled from the community. You get kicked out.
So I take it you could care less about Christ.
I mean, I don't care about most things, but I love reality.
Now I'm talking about Christ in particular. You don't really care about him like that, do you?
I don't even know how you're supposed to care about him. He's a historical figure, one out of billions, but it seems that he played a role in disseminating information about the House of Israel and the gathering and the.
Well, I'm gonna say this. Let me say this. The respect that Christians and myself in particular had for Jews as a group wasn't through our belief in Moses. I'm gonna say that it was because of Christ. You all gained respect. Listen, you all gained respect as a group through our ignorance and us believing that there was an attachment with you to him. Last question, because I know you have to go, and then we're going to pick up part 2 next week.
I'm looking forward.
You're looking forward to it. So am I. Next week, we're going to lay out some stuff. It's really going to be good for you. The Bible.
Now, go check out Brother Rakai, Gathering 144, or A Gathering 144. Man, that was deep, and he said, well, we for 2,000 years. So I wanted to go to that 2,000 year point because he brought that up. Let's talk about the Bible here. Now, if you remember, on Christ's birth, and it describes Christ's birth through Matthew, Mark, it describes Christ's birth. So let's go into it. On Christ's birth, the king, King Herod, wanted to kill Christ because Christ was coming to save his people. Now, I don't know why this is never brought up in Christian churches or never brought up pretty much anywhere, but it should be brought up because that should make people question, okay, so why would the king want to kill this man for saving his people? And then you would go and do research, and that's where we get to the 2,000 year point. After we got out of Persian captivity, our ancestors, we ended up going to war with Idumea, which is Isu, or what we would call the modern day white people, the Romans, the Jewish people. Uh, or not the Jewish is a religion, and there's multicolors in Jewish, but the European Jewish people. So we conquered them, and we forced them. They had to get circumcised. They had to obey our laws, and they became as part of our people, or as a sect of our people based off of faith, not a sect according to bloodline, but a sect according to that they now believe in our people. So let's get to the 2,000 years, right? So now, 2,000 years later, Christ is born. And Herod, which is an Idumean who was over our people, set up by the Roman Empire, emperor to be over our people, wanted to kill Christ. This, once again, like, so their hatred for Christ is no different from uh white people's hatred for us. It's no different. They wanted to kill Christ because they hated him. They now don't allow Christ or Yeshua, or like I said, I'm gonna call him Christ so I don't offend anybody. Because I know my relationship with God, and I feel like as Hebrews we argue too much over different things, and we should just be coming together. It makes more of a point for us to come together than for us to argue and bicker over other things. Plus, Revelations says that Christ will be given a new name on his arrival that no man has known yet. So we arguing over things, and Christ's gonna have a new name. We're all gonna receive new names. Okay, so we're arguing over things that are pointless, right? Now, it does say who you call upon, but if everybody's calling upon something, the Bible speaks with faith. If he calls upon Yahuwah, and I call upon Yeshua, and somebody calls upon Yahashua, and all we all get helped. We all get fed information that helps us grow and that strengthens our spirit, and we all come back to the law and commandments of God. What does it matter? I mean, it matters to me. That's why I'm gonna call him the name I believe his name is. But why would I come against you if the name you've been calling on him has been working? Now, I would try to correct you because the Bible does say that, but at the detriment of us coming together? No, I think not. I think us coming together under the laws, loving each other as a people, and loving our God, loving our neighbor as ourselves, and loving our God with all our heart, mind, and soul is the most important thing. And all other things come under that. So I just wanted to get into that because, like I said, 2,000 years before, we conquered the Idumeans. Then during Christ's time, there was an Idumean, which is a white guy, who was trying to kill Christ, which was a black guy. Because Christ was coming, it was prophesied that Christ would come and save his people. And it's remarkable because you still see the same hatred that Herod probably had for Christ that they have for Christ. And not Harry, Rabbi Harry, Rabbi Harry does have that hatred for Christ. You saw it in the video. But Rabbi Harry might not have the same hatred for us. I don't know the man personally, so I don't know what his actual intentions are. If he's just like a truth seeker or if he actually has a goal behind his plan, right? But Rabbi Harry might not hate us. But I got another video coming soon talking about racism in the Jewish religion, right? Where black people and other people are actually just pretty much looked at as they're nothing or not even Jews, even though they are, and they were born Jews and they've been Jews for generations, and they'll look at them like, well, why are they having a Hanukkah festival, or why are they having a bar mitzvah, or they'll look at these people like, why are they doing this? These are our customs when these people have been having the same customs for a long time. So I just wanted to break that down because I think it's super deep. It's super deep. The same hatred that a lot of them have for us till this day is the same hatred that they had for Christ during his time. Yeah. So that is what I wanted to hit on, because they'll always bring up, well, we've been passing it down for 2,000 years, but we know that 2,000 years before Christ, Idumea was conquered by God's people, which is white area. So it would line up with your history that you've been passing down verbal things against Christ, against Christ's people, and against black people, and against melanated peoples for 2,000 years, because you were conquered a little over 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years before Christ. So it actually lines up perfectly with what Rabbi Harry was saying and the treatment of Christ and us in general. Okay, so that's it, man. This was, I really enjoyed this video. I was looking for this clip. I thought this clip was gonna be very, very good thing to talk about, because how they hate on Christ. Like, anybody, the most evil person in the world, like, there's some books that say they can mess with little kids. There's some weird books they got, man. And some of these people are evil, evil people. Like, evil people. I'm not saying like all of them are, but some of these people, like the death and destruction they push on our community, and they use us through the influence of money, through the love of money, to push our influence of death and destruction on our people, is horrible. And those people will be defended. And if you go against them, you're anti-Semitic. They will be defended by that. But Christ, who came to save all people, you can say whatever you want about them, because they don't consider that anti-Semitic. So we're getting now even closer to the whole word of being anti-Semitic and hatred. How do the people who show the most hate towards a people, another people, and towards the Savior of the world, the Son of God, the Messiah, whether they believe or not, he is one of them, and their influence only stands because of him. But yet, you can say whatever you want about Christ. You can say whatever you want about the Son of God, the Messiah, but don't say nothing about no rich bankers. Don't say nothing about no rich people over the entertainment industry, in movies, or in the news, or in the music. Don't say anything about them, or that's anti-Semitic. But the man who came to save all people, he can be talked about in any way. On that note, I'm gonna end the video. On that note. I'm glad y'all tuned in. I really enjoyed this video. I just think it's important that people really break that down and think about that, especially if you're a Christian and you thinking that we're stealing an identity of people, and you're going along with the narrative that those people have pushed on us, that like we're stealing a heritage from them, and anything like that, and you're a Christian, you want to compare us to the Mormons or anybody else. Matter of fact, Christians say that. Christians say, what does it say in Romans? Real quick, it says uh for they were broken off so that we might be grafted in, right? So the people of God was broken off. He said they would, he says, this you would say. This is what Paul was telling the Romans. This is what you would say. Christ was broken, his people was broken off so that we could be grafted in, right? But then again, he also said, if it says if the riches of the what does it say? If the riches of the world come by the falling of these people, and the riches of the Gentiles by the diminishing of these people, how much more their fullness, right? So how much more will these people receive once they come into their fullness and come back under the heritage of God? So this is the end of the video, man. I kind of pushed it a little longer than I wanted, but you know what? It was a good one. Yeah. So if y'all watched it and you liked it or you didn't like it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and throw comments. I love the chat. I love how everybody getting in the chat, and I love our people coming together. Kwam Yasharala and Shalom. Peaceful greetings and have a blessed day to everybody who tuning in, man. Uh, Peace.